Hey everybody, welcome back to the Yossi Schmidt Show. I'm Yossi Schmidt. We have a very special guest, Halsey English. Halsey, can you please introduce yourself?
Halsey English.
Awesome.
Um, my name is Halsey English. I'm a political commentator. I discuss economics, I discuss interpersonal relationships, and I discuss religion on YouTube and Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Real Halsey E, or on YouTube at Halsey English. And I also have a Substack that I'm starting to write to now. And as I said, anytime you want to watch the show, I do shows daily. And if you want to call in with questions, feel free.
All right. So today, I don't know when this podcast is being released. Sorry, audience, but today is December 4th, I think. Um, and we have something that just happened. No, today's December 3rd. This morning, we got word that South Korea declared martial law. The South Korean president declared martial law. Halsey, can you please give the audience a brief description of what happened?
So, from what I understand, the information is somewhat sketchy at this point. But what the South Korean president has announced is that it was to curb anti-state activities by the North Koreans. Now, he didn't explain what that means, and we don't know, was it like rioter, like agitators? Was it actually some kind of military threat? But I do find it curious, and I'm seeing a lot of other commentators are starting to connect the dots to it a little bit too, that right at a time where Iran is kind of neutered, Trump is about to take office, so Russia and Ukraine are going to be sitting down at the table very, very soon. This isn't going to keep going once Trump takes office. And so everyone wants to bolster their negotiating position. And everyone knows that North Korea, Iran, and Russia work together hand to hand all the time. I'm wondering if they're opening this front so that North Korea is hoping to get some kind of benefit out of Trump coming to power and, you know, use it to negotiate for something. What? I don't know. I can't tell you what they would want because it's not like they can get more land, but maybe a sanctions relief or humanitarian aid or something like that. So I can't tell you specifically what it is they're agitating for, or whether this is going to be put down quickly, or whether this is just like a handful of whatever. But I would personally think that it has something to do with them trying to get into the game right now and see if they could get it all done. That, I mean, we know they have troops in Russia right now. We know that they have weapon sales that are going on to Russia to replace small arms like mortars and things like that. So we know that Iran is doing the same. We know that they've been collaborating for years on their nuclear program. So because Iran is sanctioned to the point where they can't work on a nuclear program openly, and North Korea can't really work on a ballistic missile program because if they start shooting ballistic missiles all over the place, there's going to be a mistake and they're going to be at war. So the question is, how far has this collaboration brought them? What is it they're looking for? And are they looking to get into this whole mess now before Trump gets into office?
Very interesting. So then why did the South Korean parliament vote to shut down this martial law?
Because it could very well be that they didn't believe that the threat would warranted it. Because South Korea is a very controlled society as well. They're just not controlled like North Korea is. They have a lot of laws against speech. They have a lot of laws against public assembly and a lot of things. It's a very Asian culture. Most Asian countries are like this in the first place. So are most European countries, to tell you the truth. That there are certain anti-government activity which is just not allowed. But if you give the prime minister, who doesn't have the clearest of mandates to run the country, if you give him martial law, there's no telling what he could do or if that could provoke the North Koreans to go even harder. You know, if he declares martial law and says everybody stay inside, then all you have to do is send some agitators out into the street and you've got conflict between supposed civilians and their military or their police force. You know, that and that could agitate because remember when Putin launched his attack on Ukraine and Iran launches their attack on Israel, or Lebanon launches their attack on Israel, their whole entire claim is they're trying to help the opposition forces in those areas. Like Iran and Hezbollah want to help the Arabs in Gaza, right? Russia wanted to help the Russian-speaking areas of Ukraine. North Korea could make a similar claim that there's, North Korean loyalists that are part of the border, and they're just trying to protect them from whatever draconian measures the South Korean are inflicting on them. I don't think many people would believe it, but they can make the claim. So I would think that the parliament believes that there's not enough of a threat to declare martial law or to put them in the driver's seat to escalate.
So just before I started this interview, before I put my phone down, I saw that the South Korean president got on TV and said the martial law is over. From
Yeah, and I saw that as well. But as I said, they're not letting a lot of information out. So we do know that the parliament voted against martial law. But as I said, the reason could be is because they don't want this to make a conflict between South Koreans. If they declare martial law and declare a curfew, right? The only people that are going to be on the street are the South Korean military or police. And anyone who would come out on the street to agitate against them will also be South Koreans. So now you have an issue where the world is seeing a conflict of South Koreans versus South Koreans. Without martial law and everybody trying to go about their lives as normal as possible, if North Korea does want to get involved, it would be against the civilian population, which is a much more clear way of defining that, okay, they're actually agitating against the country from the north. I would imagine that played in pretty strongly.
here. So thank you very much for this topic. Now let's quickly move on to something very just happened also. Hunter Biden got pardoned, a blanket pardon from his father, President Biden. Now let's just cut things to the chase. I am sorry to everybody that's going to be offended by this current statement that I'm about to make. I know there are people that are crying that it shouldn't have happened, it's corrupt. But which father would not do so for their own son? No matter how bad their son is, if you had the power to pardon your son, so why wouldn't you?
I would go even a step further, and trust me, there's very little in this world that can make me think less of Joe Biden. I mean, the guy is terrible by all extents. So if he didn't pardon Hunter Biden for the crimes that he had already committed, which he was still being tried on one, and which is the gun charge, and he was convicted somewhat in the other, and he was awaiting sentencing, then you're asking him to go in front of the Trump Department of Justice to seek either a lighter sentence or whatever it may be. But they would have leverage on him at that point. Is they would be able to say, like, look, we're going to recommend 30 years in prison for what you did. Now spill about Joe, or we're going to add more charges until you'll never see the light of day again. And from what I can tell, Hunter Biden doesn't have the strongest, backbone. I would imagine facing a significant prison term that he would crack. Right. So even if it's not a fatherly thing, even if, let's say, this is a corrupt, disgusting criminal thing, Joe Biden was getting his own back. Like he was pardoning his son, because he didn't just say he's pardoned on the charges he's facing. He pardoned him for any crime that could have been committed since 2014. So, and now it's over. Like he can't be charged with any of that. Now, the big difference, though, is that he now loses his Fifth Amendment protections. If he's hauled before Congress and told to testify, which, remember, if he doesn't show up, he'll be thrown in jail. And if someone sues Joe or Hunter and decides to do a deposition where basically anything is fair game to ask, he will not be able to assert his Fifth Amendment protection because he's in no fear of he's not incriminating himself. And you can't assert your Fifth Amendment privilege about someone else. Like I can't say, I refuse to testify, I'm asserting my Fifth Amendment privilege because this could implicate my father. You can't say that. The charge is an individual one. Sorry about that. But it makes me wonder if that was the lesser of two evils for Joe Biden. You
So
know,
you're saying he might have messed himself over.
he might have messed himself. Look, nobody's prosecuting Joe Biden for anything. Okay. The man is old. He's senile. No, there's not going to be any stomach in the country for spending time and effort going, because this would take years, to investigate and charge Joe Biden with something. And there's not even a really good chance that he would lose. Like, as I said, and at any point he could just claim that he's senile and show evidence that he's senile, which we all know, and then the whole thing stops anyway, because you can't prosecute someone who's nuts. So he probably thought, like, the worst case scenario is if they pull Hunter up, he can implicate me and my brother and all of that, but we'll probably get out of it and it'll just make us look bad. Well, what do they care about looking bad? They're not running for anything anymore. Most of their grifts have been shut down. They've made their money. So he probably took the calculated risk of saying, I'd rather, I would rather risk an embarrassment than risk actually having Hunter, face further charges, face jail time, and possibly be able to implicate me in crimes, you know?
So he put himself over the law. That's really what he did.
Yeah.
No one's above the law but me and my son.
Well, you know what, though? There's more than enough hypocrisy to go around.
No,
Okay.
I'm not.
Like, everybody
I'm not
claim,
saying that there's not. I'm just clarifying that he decided to put himself over the law. I'm
but I'm
not.
saying, though, that's something that everybody says when they're in power. When they're in power, everyone goes, "Oh, we're only doing this because no one's above the law." And then they proceed to do something to go after people that they normally wouldn't. And then as soon as they're out of power, they go, "Oh, political prosecution. This is them coming after me." And then the party in power says, "Oh yeah, no one's above the law." Like, this is it's so common that I don't even know why people make a big deal out of it, because it happens so much.
So this is my statement. I'm not disagreeing with you in the least bit. Not only am I not disagreeing with you in the least bit, I'm going to tell you this much. I have a policy that I will not run for office unless a big rabbi Rav told me to run. Why? Because power corrupts. No matter who you are, power corrupts. I don't want you to tell me, no, power doesn't corrupt. Power corrupts no matter who you are. So I don't want to put myself in that position. I don't mind calling for accountability for everybody, but I don't want to put myself in a position where I could get corrupted by power. I
Right.
am ruling out power completely. For me, unless a big Rav tells me, Yossi, you got to run for this and this reason. Other than that, I am not running. Now, is there a chance that I will run? Very, very slim. Very, very slim. I don't think any Rav or any Gadol is calling me to tell me, Yossi, run. First of all,
Right.
they don't know who I am yet. Second of all, I'm not running.
You see, I always say, like, people always ask me if, like, I have any intention of running for office, and I always say I would make a terrible politician. Like, there's no one in their right mind that would want me to be in office, because even though I have my opinions and I have my policies that I would do or whatever, like, I would nuke half the world if you gave me the opportunity. Like, I don't have the temperament for BS to be a politician. So I don't think there's any fear that I would ever run for anything. But again, it's the idea that corruption exists, nobody doubts it. The idea that these things are being done in a corrupt way, fine. But I'm also willing to just take the tack that even if none of that were true, even if Joe Biden didn't do it in a corrupt manner, even if he wasn't trying to protect himself, yada 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 yada. If he didn't pardon Hunter, I would have thought even less of him than I already do, which is very, very little. Because a father, like, unless his son was literally like a serial rapist or, like a serial murderer or something along those lines, what father wouldn't feel an obligation to keep their own son out of jail? You know?
Right, he'd be a horrible father if he didn't.
Right. And it's not like anyone's sitting back going, I mean, there's obviously people that don't think it through very much. who are sitting back going, oh, well, he said he wouldn't do it, and he said this, and he'll do this, and I thought no one was above the law. Whatever. He's the guy's his son. He's not running for any more offices. He doesn't have to impress anybody. The Constitution literally gives him the most blanket power there is to pardon against federal crimes. Like, why would everyone was I would have never expected that he wasn't going to do it.
The only thing is that this blanket pardon gives admission that there's something to be looked into um since January 2014. That's the only thing I am going to point out.
That what?
This blanket pardon gives admission that something happened since 2014.
No, it didn't. A pardon does, like, it would be if he said, I am pardoning him for the crime of X. But remember, he's never been convicted of anything except for, I think, the tax evasion thing.
So
So
then
he
why
hasn't,
would
he
continue?
pardoned him blanketly against anything he may have committed. There is no admission of guilt because Joe Biden can't admit guilt for someone else. He can't say I'm issuing this pardon for the crimes of X, Y, and Z, which I know he committed, because he can't prove that he committed because he's innocent until proven guilty. So instead, he gave him a blanket pardon. Now, if he was in jail, he could say, I'm pardoning him for the crime that he was convicted of and sent to prison with. But he can't, as of right now, there's nothing he can define as Hunter being guilty of. And unless something comes out like really big and you have Republicans go, which I would strongly urge them not to, go head forward to get Hunter, like, to testify on things, you're never going to find out what crimes he actually committed other than, like, through the press.
Then the gun charge and the tax.
They've already dismissed it. The gun charge they just announced today, they already dismissed.
Okay,
He's been
other
pardoned
than
for
that,
it.
you're not going to have anything. That's what you're
No,
saying.
no. And so, like, as I said, you can't say someone's guilty of something if they've never been convicted of it. And Joe took away the ability to charge him with anything. So
the only thing is that he can now be forced to testify. Not that he will, but he can now be forced to testify.
yes, he lost his Fifth Amendment privileges. That's for sure.
So I will say this, that I do not see the Republicans not using this to their advantage, because they rather waste our money, our taxpayer money, on frivolous things than actually do things for us.
Yeah, but the difference is this time is that, well, let's just look at the last Trump term in 2016, right? He ran with the explicit promise to investigate the Democrats for what they had done, and specifically, I'm going to put Hillary in jail and all of that. And they had a majority at first, but it was obvious that he wasn't going to get much done. He wasn't even really able to articulate, other than the border wall, what he wanted to get done. So that being said, I don't think that's the case now. Like, he has a mandate to do things right now, and it seems that not only are all the Republicans behind him, but he's got a significant amount of Democrats behind him on certain things too. Like, there's already been several Democratic politicians who have come out in favor of this whole DOGE government cutting thing, because there are certain parts of the government they want cut, like the Department of Defense, like certain things like that. Will they fight him against the Department of Education or the NIH? Sure. But at the same time, like, people are working together right now to make this not a war, because the Democrats realize a war is probably something they would lose right now. And the Republicans will just start enacting everything themselves. The dumbest thing that the Republicans could possibly do is start wasting time caring about Joe Biden or Hunter Biden at this point.
So I hear what you're saying, but don't put anything behind them, because they hate us, and if they can't do something to waste our money, they will.
Well,
Now,
remember, we have two parties in this country, right? We have the Democrats and the Republicans. The Democrats will tell you that they're pro big government. They want the government to be your best friend and take care of you from the time you're born until the time you die. Republicans, no matter what they tell you, their primary purpose in politics is to complain and raise money off of complaining. They seem to enjoy being in the minority more than winning. because when they win, they just seem like a bunch of arguing women as opposed to actually governing and doing. Like, the only thing they ever really pass is tax cuts, which are great, don't get me wrong, but they don't address anything else because they never have the unity to do it. So when they're in the minority, all they have to do is complain, complain, complain about how bad the Democrats are, and the money and the checks start rolling in. I don't think Trump is going to allow that this time. I
Got
think
it.
he's got a clear mandate, and he's made it clear also that he is going to move forward on everything he wants to do with or without their support. Like, if they're not going to confirm his nominees, he'll just wait until they go on their first recess and appoint them all anyway, and then they'll be forced to, kick them out or anything like that. If they say they won't go along with funding his priorities, well, he'll shut the government down. And remember, the
Got it.
Democrats have certain priorities too. Like, they still want the money flowing to Ukraine. They still want a lot of things from the president that they can't get if he doesn't agree to it. So he's going to be a bull in the china shop right now, because he could just say, I just won't give it to you. Like, we won't be signing any compromises or anything because I don't care about shutting down the government. I'm never running for reelection again. So I have nothing to lose if you guys decide not to go along. And the Republicans seem pretty unified,
Got it.
you know? So I have a feeling that they're going to leave the touchy stuff off the calendar for now. Like, they're just going to leave it off at like stuff like anything dealing with abortion, or anything dealing with I don't know, like, Trump will sign some executive orders on the whole trans thing, but I don't think they're going to waste their time dealing with investigating people like Hunter Biden or Joe, maybe some other people if there's evidence, but I think they're going to get right to it to try to cut down the size of government, to close the border, and to address, foreign trade right away, because these are all huge deals. And I think that he's going to press for not the Democrats' version of, but peace in most of the war areas pretty quickly as well.
Totally understand. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the Yossi Schmidt Show. Stay tuned for massive updates. Team World Supporter is not globalist, so we are changing the name. Stay tuned for that, and hold them accountable. Yes, the new name will be the same company and same organization, same project, just under a different. Hold them accountable, and I'll see you for the next interview.